Alright, so this is a follow-up video to the alphabet letter rigging. So this is where I had left off. Right, but I'm adding this additional video because if there's gonna be a whole bunch of other letters, there's gonna be at least 3 of these per letter. So if you think of this as a set, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like at least five sets of these, for each letter has like this, and this, and it's a lot to look at, and it's not the safest thing to have set up. So what I have here is a different file. It's completely organized. It also has the global controller. So with the global controller, I can like place it here, right? Then I can grab the actual COG rig, right, which is the one in blue. I'm gonna hide the bones for now. And then you can start animating. Or whatever. And I can just put that all down to 0. And when I grab the global controller, I can scale it. There's also one other extra really useful thing that I've added in here, which you'll see it. And the main group is locked out. Yeah. And it's organized. The main group. Inside of the main group, I have a empty group organizer. I just named it. Inside of it has the root joint. Next to it, it has a control group. If I crack open the control group, it's holding all the animation controller handles. These are constraints that were done in order to have the global control do its thing. And then inside the main group, right, I also have placed the mesh and also the global controller. Everything's together. And also I had these secondary controllers, the scale locked out. See? And yeah. And also these needs to be locked as well. Let me do that right now, which I'm gonna show. Alright, 1 second. Alright, so see, it's all locked now, which these controllers, they're not meant to pull, but these down here for the feet, they're okay to pull, and they're okay to kind of rotate as well. Hence, there's no lockout. Or these have a only the rotation, and over here, this one, I can still pull it and rotate it. And I'll explain why I had this that you can pull on it. So that's basically it. That way everything is airtight. Things won't break. And by the way, if you already have some basic animation, right? Assuming that the rig was done correctly and you had some basic blocking out, right? And then to make this, it won't get in the way of that previous animation, because I already tested it out just in case. Long as you create the rig, the leftovers on a frame that doesn't have any animation. So if you have frame on animation 1, just make sure to make it go to 0 and start making everything on frame 0. Go to the very beginning of the frame where there is no animation selected, right? And then you start working off of here. So if you have, say, keyframes on beginning on 1, just make sure to go to 0 and just start laying this out. So I just wanted to mention that just in case, that if you had kind of posed it, and if you did move it, right, just to stage things, and you're worried about making all this extra stuff, what you have to do is, for sure, you have to go grab it, and go to frame 0 or -1 or wherever there's no keyframes. Make it all come back to here. I don't think anybody is already up and staging everything, but I'm just saying, just make sure that everything's come back to here at the default location, all zeroed out, and on a keyframe, on a frame where there's no animation, and then you can start from there. So anyway, here we are, exactly where I left off. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do Control G as in George. I repeat, Control G. I'm going to name this empty group organizer. Right, so it's an empty group. There's nothing in here. You could just see that there's a move handle, and it relates to the movement and even like rotation, but it's empty. There's nothing in here. It's like similar to a After Effects null in a way, kind of, sort of. So I named it empty group organizer. Control G. Then I'm gonna grab the root joint. I click on it, and then I middle mouse, click on it, right? You left click to select it, then you middle mouse click and hold, middle mouse click and hold, drag and drop it into your empty group organizer. So that way you see this dotted rectangle. Boom. Click it, you see it's inside. Okay. Then my COG controller, right, which has the controllers, animation controllers, right, you see the chain. I need to group this. So Control G, while you have it selected, COG controller, Control G, and that made a group. Inside of the group has the controller. Inside of that controller has the sub-controllers. So this new group that I made, I'm going to name it CNTRL, or Control Group. Control Group. And when I click it open, there it is. I'm going to left click on the control group. I'm going to middle mouse click and hold. Now I'm going to middle mouse drag and drop into here, into the empty group organizer. Because this organizer is going to organize these two together into one. So far so good. Then I'm going to make another new group, Control G. There's nothing in there. I'm going to name it the letter R for my letter main group. Letter R main group. I'm going to grab my empty group organizer. I'm going to left click on, I'm going to middle mouse click and hold, and I'm going to drag and drop it into my main group, R main group. Boom. There it is. Then I'm going to grab the letter R, the mesh, actual mesh. I'm going to middle mouse click and hold, drag and drop into the R main group. Then I need to import something. Make sure you have this, 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 and this, and this for your import options. I'm going to import my global controller that I made for you guys. Animation controller global. This should be on the W drive. Okay. Import. There it is. Simple name. Nothing in here. No history. Nothing. Now, this empty group organizer, right, which now contains my animation controllers and the mesh. And see how I can move it, right? But the only way to move it and rotate it is by going into the outliner and grabbing it. Because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to grab it because it's invisible. There's nothing to grab, meaning the group, empty group organizer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that my global controller is going to commandeer and control my empty group organizer, which in return has the root, joint, system, chain, and has the control group. Because this thing is invisible, you can't grab it in the 3D world. So this is where I have to pay a little bit of attention, because I need to grab my global controller, which is not linked to anything. Grab that first. Then I'm going to hold control, and I'm going to grab my empty group organizer. Empty group organizer should be the last thing I selected. You'll see it here. Make sure. I'm going to go into constraint, parent constraint. Now you notice the empty group organizer, it's blue, which means that there is a parent constraint happening. Parent constraint will dynamically link your translates and your rotates to the global controller now. But that's not the rest of it. I also want the empty group organizer, which contains these, and also now this, which is the parent constraint that I just did. I want the scale to be commandeered by the global controller and its scale. So I'm going to grab my global controller again. I'm going to hold control and grab my empty group organizer, like how I just did just a moment ago. You can see that the empty group organizer is blue. I want this also to be blue. I'm going to go to constraint, scale. Now it's also blue. But we're not done yet. We're almost done. I'm going to grab my global control. I'm going to middle mouse click and hold on it. Drag and drop here. Now this is also part of the main group. The global control, I think I should name it R underscore, because for the letter R. That way it's just organized. You just never know. Next, I need to grab my mesh. I'm going to click on Delta Mush. And then I'm going to go Window, general editors, connection editor. I'm going to just clear everything. This is my connection editor. Basically, it lets you dynamically link up certain things to something else. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the mesh, click on Delta Mush, right? Select the mesh, click on Delta Mush, reload left. There's my Delta Mush and its components all here. Just make sure to show non-keyable, show inputs only. Then for the right display, show readable, non-keyable, show hidden. And I'm gonna select the global controller. I'm gonna load it in my right column. Global controller. For the global controller, I'm gonna select my scale. And for my Delta Mush, I'm gonna connect it to the Delta Mush's scale. Now the global controller has an outputs connected to the Delta Mush of the mesh, and it's yellow, meaning that there is a connection, editor connection for the global controller. Now if I connect the mesh, if I click on the Delta Mush for my mesh, it's yellow as well. That tells us that it's been dynamically connected. So all of that I just did for the Delta Mush and the connection editor, that is what allows it to scale without any issue. Because if I don't have it, it doesn't have these sharp angles anymore. It starts to look like a bubble, like soft and plushy and curvy. It just loses the definition. Here, 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 even here. That's why I did that connection editor. Now I can grab my global control, set it back to 1. Oh, not only that, but let's say, perfect example, if I grab my global controller now, press R, scale it, you see how it's 15, right, on the scale? If I grab my mesh, right, you see the scale's locked out and everything, but when I click on my Delta Mush for the mesh under inputs, see what it says here, 15? Exactly the same as global controllers 15.108. So there is your dynamic linking, which is needed because if you try to scale without this, it's gonna lose a lot of shape, and it's noticeably bad. Anyhow, so this, now we have to lock some things. Anything where it's just a rotation only, right? I need to lock my translate. Okay. And I also need to lock. Oh, by the way, I press Control to select it. Okay. So this, you just highlight like that. Boom, boom, boom. Anything that is need to be only having, for example, rotations, you lock out the other ones. So for example, this controller I just selected, this is regarding controllers only. I'm gonna right click here, lock. click that controller. I'm going to press G as in George. It repeats the last command. I'm going to grab that. See how it's still highlighted? Press G as in George. I'm going to grab this. Press G as in George. Grab that. G as in George. Grab this. It's going to be for this. See? Press G as in George. Then this one is different. This one right here, I want to be able to pull on the feet and rotate. So this one, I'm just leaving everything alone, but I'm going to lock out my scale. I'm gonna start off again with this one. I'm gonna lock out the translates and the scale. Right click, lock. And I'm gonna leave this highlighted. I'm gonna grab this one, this guy right here, carefully select it. I might as well hide the bone as well. This is still selected. Press G. Now it's locked. My root controller, I don't want to mess with it. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna grab down here this guy, and I don't want the scale to be selected. I don't want the rotate to be selected for him. I just want the scale to be locked out. Press G. I'm gonna grab this controller now. I'm gonna lock out the scale and the translate. Press G. If you have other letters that need some top level squash and stretch, right, you end up having that controller as a parent constraint. Like I want this one to be parent constraint. Anyway, this right here, done. This right here, select, 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 boom, 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 right click, lock. I want to have that still selected. Grab this one, this guy right there, you see it's not gray, press G. Grab this one, 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 press G. This one as well. Again, this has to do with that you have to know yourself which ones you want to have parent constraint, which means you can pull and rotate, and which ones you only want to have rotation. Right? So check, 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 check. Global control, I'm leaving alone. So everything is locked in place. The main group for my letter, I'll see how I have it named. I want to lock it. That way no one can mess with it and only have the visibility on if I ever need to hide it. Or press 1. 0 to hide, 1 to show. Now it's nice and airtight and organized. If I grab it, scale it, no issues. I can move it out. Oh, I mean, I can move my center of gravity controller way out. Then I can grab my global controller and spin, or do this or whatever. And it's working well. I'm gonna just reset my center of gravity back to 0. my center of gravity, actually, I want to lock out my scale too for my center of gravity. Lock. Sweet. Alright, so I did all of that. There's only one more thing. You need to make these controllers. So I have my animation controllers for the letter R. I have my bones. By the way, to see the bones is this one right here. Then I have my mesh. Because you don't want to accidentally grab things. See? I don't want to do that. I want to set it to R so I can't grab it. Even the bones, I don't want to be able to select the bones. Because if I press S by accident, it's going to break something sooner or later. So I place the bones in its own layer. I type R. Click to choose R here. So I cannot select the bones. I can select the controllers. Anyway, so that's everything. I'm gonna hide my bones. I'm gonna hide my mesh if needed. I can turn it back on. I can hide my controllers. I can turn it back on. And the main group, like I mentioned, lock it out. So you can't keyframe your main group or anything. It's just a container. That's all it is. So that's pretty much everything for this. Now it is 100% completed and good to go. Okay, so that's everything. I want to put this on YouTube. Bye.